Welcome to High Performance Coaching and Training. This is Lee, and today we're going to discuss conflict. So there's four levels of conflict that, or should say, four signs of conflict that we're going to talk about, and we'll go through those slides as we progress through. So the first question we ask ourselves is, how do we know that there's conflict happening? Obviously there are some signs of conflict, but how do we know that there is conflict so that we're able to manage it more effectively than what we're currently doing at the moment? As we know, most people avoid conflict and they don't like to be confrontational, and this is probably not a very productive thing to do. But the first sign of conflict is that discomfort side. That feeling you get in your gut that there's something not quite right. It's intuitive. You walk into a room and the air is stressful. It's, as they say, you can cut the air with a knife. That's an indication that there's some conflict happening, or someone's been talking about someone, and the conflict may not necessarily be about you at all. It may be about someone else, but you sometimes think, because you walked in the room, it could be about you, because sometimes we think, is that person speaking about me? Instead of just thinking about maybe they're talking about someone else. So that's that gut feeling that we have, and what happens here is we're not too sure what's happening, and a lot of us don't address it at that stage, but we know there's something not quite right with that person or that team member. But what we like to do is just sweep it under the carpet, don't address it at all at that stage, which, as I said, is not really a good thing to do. So the next stage happens is, first of all, we get the gut feeling, we haven't addressed it, and then we're looking for evidence to prove there's something not right. As they say, we're always looking for evidence to prove that we're right. So what happens then is there's actually an incident. So it could be, for example, that person that maybe you walked in that room, you felt the tension, and that person walked out straight away, or they didn't engage with you, or perhaps they were very chatty to other team members and they didn't involve you in there as well. So there's an incident, there's something that's happened and you notice it, and straight away from that you create meaning around that, which could be misunderstandings as well. So when there's incident, it sometimes suggests that something is not wrong, and you create your own meaning around it. So everything at this stage is by the assumption. We haven't engaged in a conversation with the other person at all. So everything is based upon what we think is going on, and perhaps not reality as well. So the next stage we get into, we haven't addressed anything, we've gone through those first three stages, and now we start feeling tension. We start feeling tension around the person. We get very anxious around them. We're not wanting to communicate with them. We're wanting to avoid confrontation. We don't want to bring anything up, but we're feeling a strong sense of disengagement with that person as well. So what happens is then we can then create a negative attitude towards that person, and then we create a high level of tension within the relationship as well. And then we go to our final stage. Then we go into crisis mode. So crisis mode often it's almost a stage there where you're very emotive. Your emotions are running high, and your decision-making processes then are based on your emotions and not on logic. So what happens then is, depending on your own personality type, you may get to a stage where you explode. You may get to a stage where you become passive aggressive, which you withdraw from that person, but you do the passive aggressive behaviors as well. So at this stage, it's very difficult to address the conflict because it's escalated to a stage where there's a lot of emotions around it. And sometimes when we communicate when there's a lot of emotions around us, we can get very angry. We don't communicate effectively, as we know about good communication skills. We might go into the blame, and at the end of the day, it makes it worse. So when you have a team that's got crises among the team, it obviously has to be addressed. Now, the best place to address the problem is at the very, very beginning. So when you feel that discomfort or the early signs, or perhaps even at the incident or misunderstanding, you need to start addressing the conflict at that stage. Therefore, some strategies you can look at is the conflict resolution strategies. You always come from an I perspective, and you always try and find common ground to actually get an agreement that you both want to come to a common ground, and that could be, you both want to come to work and be treated respectively, be able to be motivated and be in a culture that's going to support you. So you may come across something like, for example, it could be, Jane, I've noticed that I'm feeling a little bit uneasy with our relationship. I'm not too sure what's going on, but I want to see what I can do to actually improve the relationship with you. And I know that it's all about us, both of us, being able to come to work and actually, perform our work well, do our duties well. Let's sit and have a bit of a chat and see if we can sort it out. So that's the logic way of handling it. However, if you're at this stage, you don't think logically at that stage. It's emotional. It's about the blame game. It's about you being treated unfairly. And obviously then your communication style is not as effective as it would be at an earlier stage. So what we're saying here, what I'm trying to say here is, let's see if you can address it at an early stage. Address it with all your good skill, your skills that you have already. Most of us understand what good communication skills are, and address your conflict at that early stage instead of letting it get to that stage. So look for the clues. And our next session is around about power, about using power in a more of a cooperative way and not in a negative way. And I hope you've enjoyed the session, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.